If stress makes a mess of your day, interferes with your work or your play, there's a tool that can make it go away. Your sense of humor.
With 20 years experience as a businessman, entertainer, and speaker, it's no wonder Barry Roberts can easily connect with your audience and leave them with techniques and a message that they will use immediately. For more than 16 years, Barry Roberts has studied the effects of humor and mood on human beings, especially as it relates to stress, innovative thinking, decision-making, productive thinking, and self-esteem. The huge success of these presentations to a variety of associations and corporate audiences is testimony to their effectiveness.
A philosophy that says having a sense of humor means being able to see the fun in all of the experiences that each and every one of us go through every day. Using your inner sense of humor is another tool that you'll all have so that you can deal with your stresses, with your angers, with your frustrations from a whole different vantage point. You can deal much more effectively when you're dealing with this through your inner sense of humor than you can when you're all tense and angry and tied up in knots and trying to solve a problem. You know what I mean? I'll give you an example. My dad is now 81 years old, and he lives in Florida. We've already established I live in New York. About 2 years ago, my dad needed some very serious surgery. He had a lot of confidence in his doctors. He wasn't so much worried about the surgery as he was worried about coming out of the anesthesia. I don't know where he got this from, but this was his big fear. He was very worried about that. My sister lives in Maryland, my sister and I went down to be with him during the surgery. When it was over, we saw the doctor in the hall. He gave us a thumbs up. We were feeling good. We went upstairs to his room to wait for them to bring him up from the recovery area. When they did, he was still totally unconscious from all the anesthesia. And it seemed to my sister and I, there were tubes just coming out of him everywhere. They got him in his bed. My sister and I tried talking to him. Nothing. Got no response. We understood. A little while later, the nurse came in. She checked all his vital signs, and she checked all these tubes. And as she was leaving, she leaned over to him and kind of whispered in his ear. She said, "Everything looks fine. I'll be back a little later to check on you again." She started to walk out. Before she got to the door, my dad somehow lifted his head off the pillow. His eyes were still closed, and he had that kind of hoarse voice, because he had a tube down there. He said, "Thank you. And when you come back, if you bring another tube, we'll have lunch together." Now, I know that's the punchline of an old joke. But here was the first seconds that my dad was coming back into consciousness, and you would think he'd be freaking at this point. "Oh my God, am I all right? Am I going to live? What they find?" But no, somehow or other, he found a way to find a little humor right then and there, and that humor did him a tremendous amount of good. It did the nurse a world of good. She doesn't have a whole lot of fun all day, and it was great for my sister and I. In fact, studies done at Harvard University have shown that teachers who inject a fair amount of humor into their lessons generally turn out students who do better on exams. And the reason is really very simple. You see, humor piques our interest. Once we've piqued someone's interest, it becomes easier for them to retain the information that we are imparting. The research has shown that this very same thing holds true not only for a teacher in front of a classroom, but for salespeople and their clients, for managers, administrators, running any kind of meetings, large, small, anything from one-on-one to a large group of people. And so if you can learn to interject just a little bit of humor into those kind of situations, what a difference all of that can make. These 5-minute fun flings have benefited me. A couple of years ago, I was in an automobile accident not too far from my home on a major street near my home. I'm driving along. Fortunately, we weren't going fast. Driving along, a new restaurant opened, and the big sign, and boom! I just rear-ended a car in front of me. I just wasn't looking. Now, not the first time I was in an accident, but it was the first time I was in an accident that was totally and unquestionably my fault. And I was okay. My first concern was to make sure the person in the other, or people I know now, there was only one person in the other car. She was okay. But nonetheless, when I got out of the car, I found my whole body trembling. My legs were shaking. My whole body was trembling. And I could hardly speak. I was having trouble breathing. My breathing was very shallow. Doctor told me later I must have been in shock. But the whole thing was very unsettling to me, and I was just so surprised at my reaction to it that I just had trouble standing there. And this woman was right in my face, and I don't even know what she was saying. It was just, blah, 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 you know. And I just knew in my mind that I had to think of something, some way to calm myself down, because I was afraid I would faint right here in the street. And I do remember her asking me for my license and registration, which in New York State, that's the law. You have to produce your license and registration. And I gave that to her. And I have to tell you again, the front of my car was all smashed in. The rear end of her car was a big mess. And she took out a sheet of paper and a pencil and went like this and leaned on the front of my car to write down the information. And that's when it occurred to me. That's when I said to her, I said, please don't do that over there. You'll scratch my paint. And I got to tell you, if looks could kill, I would not be standing in front of you today. But when I said it, I mean, I meant to relieve myself a little bit, and so I started to laugh. When she saw me laugh, she realized I wasn't being cute. I was just trying to be funny, and so she started to laugh. And I'm not going to tell you that we went on to become the closest of friends. That didn't happen. But what did happen was, you know, the electricity suddenly was gone from the air, and the atmosphere between us was at least as palatable as it could be while we were waiting for the police and the tow trucks. But it was a result of doing these 5-minute fun flings regularly that got me thinking that way. Throughout my years of research on the subject of humor on human effectiveness, I have found that we all readily admit to having a sense of humor, and yet few of us are able to call upon that sense of humor in moments of anger, stress, frustration, or when we need to be more innovative. My knowledge on this subject comes from thorough research and a lifetime of experience as a teacher, sales manager, entrepreneur, and entertainer. My presentations have been developed to lead people to lives of minimal stress, maximum innovation, and abundant self-esteem.
Barry's topics include fun with stress, practice safe stress, how to use your innovative thinking skills. Is that your final answer? Esteem rolling your way to success.
Not so long ago, I was addressing a group in Florida, and I had to rent a car to get from the airport to the meeting site. So I'm in my little rental car, stopped at a red light. Next to me at the red light is a brand new Mercedes-Benz convertible with a very attractive woman at the wheel. And when the light turned green, she pulled out ahead of me, and that's when I saw her license plate, which said, "was his." I love that. That made a note, got home, that went right into my humor journal. Yeah. A week or so ago, I came out of my house. My neighbor must have been having a problem. There was a plumber's truck in my neighbor's driveway. I don't remember the name of the plumber, but big, bold, on the side panel of the truck, this plumber's truck, it said, "Remember, a flush beats a full house." Excuse me, I went back inside, wrote that down in my humor journal. Now, I don't know how widespread the reputation of the Long Island Expressway is. We often call it the Long Island Distressway or the world's largest parking lot, but I was stuck on the Long Island Expressway one day. There was a guy on a motorcycle next to me with a patch on the back of his jacket that said, "If you can read this, my girlfriend fell off." My programs are always tailored to meet the specific needs and background of your audience. In order to accomplish this, I'll need to know all I can about your group. At the end of the program, the attendees will learn to use their inner sense of humor to channel stress and approach each day with a more cheerful attitude, one that will make them more productive, more innovative, and more in demand. I mentioned Robin Williams earlier. Another fellow that has made, again, I'll guess all of us laugh at some time or another, was Charlie Chaplin. And you've all seen that scene in his movies of that Charlie Chaplin character. You've seen that scene of him walking down the street where he slips and falls on a banana peel. And we all laugh. We think that's so funny. And somebody asked Charlie Chaplin in an interview once, why is that funny? And he said, everything is funny, as long as it happens to somebody else. and maybe he's right. Maybe that's why we laugh at that, because it's not us falling down there, and we can relate. But this is just a wonderful story that I want to share with you that took place during the filming of a Charlie Chaplin movie where they were going to use that gag again. But the director wanted it to appear different. The director wanted to set it up differently than it was used originally. And how to set this scene up was causing the director a good deal of frustration and a good deal of stress. You see, the director couldn't decide if it would be funnier to show the banana peel first and then get a close-up of the character's feet, the little tramp, of his feet walking along until he eventually steps on the banana peel and falls down. Or he thought, would it be funnier if we got the close-up of his feet first as he walked down the street, and then at the last second got a shot of the banana peel when he stepped on it and fell down? This indecision was causing him a lot of stress. So he decided to call upon Charlie Chaplin, to ask Charlie Chaplin what he thought would be the best way to do it. Charlie Chaplin, so the story goes, thought about it for a few minutes, came back to the director and said, okay, here's what I think. I think we should show the banana peel first, and then show the tramp's feet walking toward the banana peel. Then get a close-up of his face as he sees the banana peel and steps over it into an open manhole on the other side. And now the point of that wonderful little story is simply to illustrate that when we're faced with problems, when we're faced with situations that might be stressful, where indecision might be causing us stress, it's not always plan A or plan B. It's not always yes or no, or this or that. There's more than one way to solve these issues. And if you're dealing with issues that cause you stress on a regular basis, the kind of day-to-day stressful things that we've talked about, if these things keep recurring, and you keep dealing with them the same way, you're going to keep getting the same results. If you've never tried dealing with your personal stressful situations with some of the humorous type of techniques that we've talked about so far, and there are more that we're going to explore, if you haven't tried dealing with them with some of this material, well then maybe it's time to try some of that. Every seminar is filled with handouts that become useful tools long after the program is over. Thank you for your time and interest. I look forward to meeting you personally at your next meeting.
This is what people are saying about Barry.
It was the best program I've ever been at.
I think the presentation was one of the best I've ever heard. Barry was really great, and I really learned some exercises, and I'm going to use them in dealing with daily stress.
I thought Barry Roberts was terrific and very appropriate for counselors because our jobs are full of stress, and we need to keep sight of humor in our lives on a day-to-day basis and teach our kids to use humor as well. So I thought it was fantastic. Absolutely wonderful.
What more could we ask from a speaker? I surely have noticed a difference in my work and personal life thanks to you. Your comments were stimulating and thought-provoking. You had us laughing and singing. There is nothing better to relieve stress than a little laughter. Our program evaluations were glowing. We all had a fun, uplifting evening. Your practical techniques were put to immediate use. For booking information, please call the telephone number on the cover of this video.
In time you will find what a difference it makes to laugh when you can instead of getting the shakes. A new attitude's often all that it takes to block out the tension, and oh, did I mention are times that you're feeling distressed, there's a tool that can make you your best. Use the tool with which we've all been blessed for freeing your brain, relieving the pain, your sense of humor.